Hey gardeners, Amy here. Welcome to my new garden. So late summer 2025, we packed up everything that we had going on in Spokane. I sold my business and I moved to Canada. That was not a random choice. My dad was Canadian when he was alive, and when he died, he left me his house and his property, and we kept it, always intending to move up here someday. And with everything going on, someday became right now. We're gonna get out right now while we still can. And so here we are in Canada, and I want to give you a tour of the property. It doesn't look like much right now, but to me, it's rich with my family history. When my dad's parents immigrated from Italy, this is the piece of property that they purchased. They raised their 5 children here. I came up and spent my summers here. I watched my grandma in her garden right down there. I remember walking around with her and pulling weeds, and she showed me things. It was one of those early experiences that clearly shaped my life more than I knew at the time it was doing. And so when I look around this property, I see what used to be, and I see the potential for what I can turn it back into and expand from there. So let's take a walk. The first thing I'll actually talk about is the house itself. The house that you see here is not the original house. Clearly, it's a double-wide manufactured home on a foundation with a full basement, so that's nice, and the basement's unfinished, so we do plan on finishing it and making this our own. That's a later thing. That'll be kind of expensive, so we're not doing that yet. I'm filming this in September of 2025. I don't know when I'll get it posted, so if the current season around me doesn't look like the season that it currently is for you outside, that's why. So my dad was the youngest of 5, and I think this is traditional Italian culture, but the youngest child tends to live with the parents until the parents die, and then they inherit the parents' house. That's what happened with my family. I think that's normal for Italians. I'm not positive on that, though, because I don't know much about actual Italian culture in Italy. I just know what happened here. But anyway, when my dad passed, I was his only heir, so I got the house, which seemed a little odd to me, given that, I was in America and I loved this family very much, but I didn't feel as much a part of it as to be the one that inherited the family homestead. But I feel very lucky and very blessed to have done so. It gave me a place to go when I wanted to get out of America and a reason to move. I'm very grateful to be here. And I'm not taking lightly the responsibility that I have to rejuvenate Grandma's garden and the whole property. But after my grandma died, when my dad inherited this property, he took down the original house and he built this one. Now, it's a little bit in a slightly different spot from the original house, but this tree right here, this used to be outside the living room window, but it was a lot farther away. The house was farther back. The problem is that this tree right now is way too close to the house, and fire risk is a real thing here. So unfortunately, as much as I love this tree and as much as my family loves this tree, the responsible thing for me to do is going to be to take it down. I might see if I can start another one somewhere else on the property, but it's also not a very useful tree. It's a crabapple. It doesn't taste like anything. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet, but we'll come back to that another time. Let's go for a walk. So down just below the house, there's a steep slope down to Grandma's vegetable garden. Now, I've shown these 2 pictures a few times in my videos. This was me at, I think, around 6 years old and maybe 9-ish, 10, something like that, with my grandma in her vegetable garden. That vegetable garden is right here. Obviously, it has not been gardened or cared for at all in a long time. When Grandma passed, my dad really wasn't too much into gardening, so he didn't do anything with it. And after he died, I've had 3 separate tenants in this house so that somebody was living here and it didn't just, completely get ruined. And none of them did anything with the garden either. The first one at least mowed the grass, but that was the end of it. Nobody's taken care of it since. So now it's completely gone to weeds. It's absolutely full of Canada thistle and greater burdock, both of which are very unpleasant to deal with. But my plan for rejuvenating this is that between now and winter, I'm going to start clearing and cutting down all the overgrowth on the property. I'm going to pile everything in the middle, and then I'm going to till a circle around it. And then in the winter, I'm going to light it on fire. Everything down there will burn. And then the potassium from the ashes will then feed and rejuvenate the soil. And then I can till the whole thing again in the spring and hopefully have really nice baseline for a thriving garden. I don't know how much of it I'm going to be able to actually garden by myself in 1 year. We'll see. I'm also not much of a vegetable gardener, honestly. I'm a flower gardener. There's a difference. But that's my goal. That's what I'm thinking. And then the other thing I'm kicking around is I'm thinking about getting chickens, which might be crazy. I've had chickens before. I loved having chickens. They are a hoot. But it took me having chickens to realize that I just really don't like eggs that much. Still, chickens are great for weed control and fertilizer. So I might just put like a chicken tractor, one that you can pull around, and just kind of pull it around the perimeter of the garden so it keeps the weeds from creeping in. That's my thought. I don't know. What do you think? Should I get chickens? One thing I do really, really want someday when I'm ready, not right now, but later, is peacocks. Peacocks are fantastic. They're excellent watchdogs, like guard animals, and they're just so pretty. So that's a thing I've thought about doing now that I'm out here, is getting peacocks, just because they'd be fun. That's really... So that's my grandma's garden. Let's keep walking. As you come up the driveway, there's this nice big parking area where I have my truck. But it's all gravel, and there's nothing stopping the weeds from growing. One of the first things I'm going to do next spring is put in a FireWise or FireSmart, because I'm in Canada and they have a different word for it, FireSmart landscape. And what that's going to involve is a concrete walkway all the way around the house and a patio over in the back. I really want to be able to sit out by the orchard and enjoy the sun and enjoy the mountain air and everything that this amazing property has to offer. But I also don't want to have to walk all the way around to get there because, I'm a bit lazy. So I'm going to add another staircase going from the deck down to that patio. The other big concern is over here. So here on the back corner of the house, here's the driveway where I was just standing over there. Weeds all over the place, a volunteer tree. And then there's this space between the house and the fence, which is where the property line is. This is the edge of my property right here, which means for a FireSmart landscape, this is the space I have to work with before I hit forest. I have no rights to this land over here, so I can't just cut it all down or even prune it all back. So I'll need to talk to the property owner next door. I don't think they'll care because there's this entire forest between them and me. And if I take like a 30-foot perimeter out and just kind of cut it down a little bit and keep it mowed, I don't think they'll mind. I really hope they don't. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. But that's a conversation I'll have with the neighbor someday in the next few months. But this all here is definitely going to be concrete because that way, if a fire were to start, God forbid, in this forest over here, it can't directly just creep along the ground and get to the house. But I do still have to worry about the canopy falling on the house. So that's still a concern I'm still working out. Let's go check out the orchard. I do have to apologize if there is any background noise. There's a lot of wind right now, and there's a train right over there, because of course there is. But this is my chance to film, so this is what I've got to work with. So here's the house here. This is the space between the house and the property line where I just was talking about. There's going to be a concrete pad all the way around, a nice wide walkway. And then right where the oil tank over there is, that's where I'm going to put the really big patio where we can sit and enjoy ourselves. This FireWise plan is very likely to include a mosquito net on the deck up where I started the video, and then probably a few torches and fans strategically placed around the patio because the mosquitoes here are insane. I will be posting a video about mosquitoes pretty soon, about how to control them on your property. So consider this a little preview into what I'm planning to do with my property about the mosquitoes. Once I get the concrete pad in and the FireWise landscape dealt with and all that stuff, I plan on overseeding the lawn with mosquito-resistant plants, specifically peppermint, oregano, and maybe some thyme. Mosquitoes hate all three of those, and they make great ground covers. They're fabulous in the lawn. They all take mowing well. The peppermint does have a few sticks to deal with, but this isn't a lawn we play soccer in. I'm not really worried about that. What I want is mosquito repellent. So the whole lawn is going to be done in those three plants, maybe a few others. I haven't finished my research on that yet, but that's still to come. Any of you that have followed me for a little while, you know how much I love lawn alternatives. I think they're great because I hate grass lawns. They're high maintenance. They suck up so much water. For what? Why? Why do we do this? It's a societal norm, and it's one that needs to go away. So I like lawn alternatives that require less water, preferably less mowing, and maybe that feed the bees. You know, let's feed some pollinators. So those 3 plants will do that, and I'm very excited to do that. The other thing that I have to contend with is all of this right here. That's Canada thistle growing in the lawn. So expect a video on that, because I don't know how I've had my YouTube channel for over 5 years and I have not done a video on Canada thistle yet. There it is. So I'll be doing a video on that very soon, I think. Anyway, here's the house and the lawn area, but the real pride and joy of my family was always the orchard. There are 3 plum trees right over here. I'm pretty sure my dad planted those. I was in high school and he really wanted to make plum wine, so he planted those 3. And then there's a couple of lilacs and a shed over here, which I'm not sure what it was used for. There's a few different stories throughout the family. I always thought it was just for garden tools, but I think somebody actually might have lived there when they first bought this property. And then back behind there is the apple orchard, which used to have at least 8 different apple trees, I think. I remember a lot of apple trees when I was a kid. Only 3 are left. And so that'll be my project in February, is pruning all these trees and starting to rejuvenate them and bring them back to full health, because I really do want to keep those trees as long as possible. And they have a lot of problems. So let's go look at them. So the 3 plum trees here, the trees themselves, I think, are actually in pretty good condition. The issue that I have is that nobody's mowed in I don't know how long up next to the trees, and I think they're absolutely completely full of suckers underneath there, which might actually be a good thing where we are, because suckers will keep like rabbits and other ground-dwelling creatures from chewing on the trunks. So suckers can be useful to an extent, but I can't even get to the trees to pick the plums, so that's kind of a problem. But like I said, the trees themselves I think are actually okay, and the plums are delicious. They're actually coming ripe right now. Let's go pick one. Yes. Oh, that's yummy. Okay. Telling you, these trees are at least, God, they have to be 30 years old almost, 25, 30 years. And you know, I'm actually seeing 5 separate trees here now that I'm up close and looking at it. So I wonder if they volunteered, because Dad only planted 3. So I've got my work cut out for me, that's for sure. And then there's this thing. I don't remember what tree that was, but it's very dead, so it's got to come out. That'll be a whole project one weekend. Maybe not. Might just pop right out. I don't know. And then wait till spring when you see these lilacs in bloom. Oh, mwah. One other thing I have to talk about while I'm over here is my grandma's peony garden. So the plums are right here, and her peonies are right in here. She had this whole row of peonies and poppies, and they would bloom, you know, peonies bloom like June-ish sometime, and the poppies would go through most of the summer. The peonies were the size of my head when I was a kid. Like, somewhere there's a picture of me standing next to one of them. I can't believe these are still alive. I don't think any of the tenants took care of them, but there they are. Like, it's a weedy mess, so I'm going to have to find the plants. That'll be another fall project, is weeding out this garden. But this is where I intend to have a gorgeous perennial garden with Grandma's peonies in the center. And then I'm going to surround it with a bunch of native plants to offset the Chinese peonies. I want to use this property to support the pollinators. Now, I have to relearn what's native and what's not, because I'm not in Spokane anymore. There might be some differences that are going to catch me off guard, but we'll find out. We'll all learn together, okay? Now, here we are in the apple orchard. This was one of my favorite places to play as a kid. There used to be at least, I want to say 8 trees. I don't remember, though. There are 3 left. They're here. I actually just found a 4th one way in the back, but it's like the forest has encroached on it. Like, there used to be a lot more space between the back tree and the forest, and that one's really not doing well. Like, it's pretty gnarly looking. Of the 3 trees that are up here, only one of them have fruit on it, and that's this one. And the one that's back by the forest has a couple apples on it. Surprising, but there it is. But this is another thing that I intend to rejuvenate and get back to at least something that resembles what it was when I was a kid. I'll be pruning these trees in February because that's the time to prune fruit trees. You want to prune fruit trees when they're dormant because then they wake up in the spring and it's like when you give a haircut to a kid in the middle of the night. They don't even notice. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to film that video. I'm kicking around the idea of doing it live, but I also think that might be a really boring video to watch live. But it also could be fascinating because you guys can ask me questions directly while I'm up in the tree pruning. I don't know if I'll be able to actually interact with the camera and read your questions while I'm sawing away, but I know that I can talk for hours about pruning and tree care and all the other things. So let me know in the comments. Do you think I should do that one live, or should I just record that and you guys can watch it if you want to whenever? Let me know. And then I plan on planting a bunch of other fruit trees. I don't want an orchard that's just apples, like what my grandparents had. I want at least one cherry, an apricot, maybe a peach, but we don't eat peaches fast enough. They go bad too fast. And maybe a nectarine. I'm not sure. But definitely a cherry and an apricot. Those are two of my favorites. So guys, I think that's it. That's the property. I showed you my grandma's garden. I showed you the house. I showed you the plum trees, the apple trees, and my grandma's peonies. And I talked about my plans for Fire Smart landscape next spring, overseeding this lawn with mosquito repellent plants, and adding a few other fruit trees into the orchard again. And that's all the plans I have worked out for sure. Normally I say to like the video if you learned anything new. I don't know if I taught you anything new on this one. It's more of a vlog style video. But like the video if you enjoyed seeing this property and if you're looking forward to what I do with it in the future years. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments down below. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe so you can follow me on this journey of rejuvenating my grandma's gardens. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in the garden.